What is going on, guys? My name is Johnny. I'm your host for today's podcast on this Sunday afternoon. We got a lot of things to talk about. Okay, first of all, I'm doing the show for the first time from my house, which is pretty cool. We were doing it originally from where we work at, where me and Will work at, which we're still going to do those podcasts as well, but the interference between customers coming in and, outside noises, not to mention our air's broke at that shop and it is extremely hot in there. So for me and Will to sit side by side to actually do one of these podcasts is becoming very, very, very hard to do that without having to sweat all over each other. So, we're here to talk about everything going on within the world of World Wrestling Entertainment, in the world of wrestling, and also in the world in general, of course, with this COVID-19 stuff going around and ultimately affecting sporting events more than probably anything else right now when it comes to what this epidemic is actually impacting, other than jobs, of course, and everything. But the world of sports is definitely feeling the impact from this epidemic, and World Wrestling Entertainment was finally deemed an essential business by the state of Florida. Very controversial decision. Me and Will didn't really cover that because there was just so many other people covering it at one time. We felt like it was kind of like jumping on the same bandwagon, to kind of get a video out just for views. When we do a podcast, me and him like to actually talk about things that we feel that matter to the fans and things that are very serious in today's time, and how we, how we respond to, different scenarios within the world of World Wrestling Entertainment, also in the world of wrestling as well. We know with AEW and also independent promotions being affected by this epidemic in certain degrees of whatever's happening, either overseas or here in the States. So we talk about everything, regarding the COVID-19 stuff. We've, mentioned how wrestling was definitely on its wit's end at one point, where they didn't really know if we would be able to see wrestling on a weekly basis. We didn't know if it was going to be taped forever from this point on. We didn't know if they weren't going to deem them an essential business and they just were not going to be allowed to broadcast from the Performance Center in Florida. We just didn't really know the state of things. And also with AEW changing locations to where they film at to an undisclosed location was actually discovered to be in somewhere in Georgia. Now they have the issue of possibly not being a essential business, which if you really want my opinion on things and how I perceive this and the way that most governors and states need to regulate sports entertainment or wrestling in their respective places, I think every single wrestling business should be essential. And that's just the way I see it. Quite frankly, the reason why I believe that so well is because they are an entertainment platform. They are there to entertain you. They are there to take your mind off of everything that's been going on within your world lately, and within your personal conflicts of having maybe no job or being stuck at home all day. It's a way for you to kind of watch something every single Monday or every single Thursday night or Friday night, to just kind of give you a little bit of sense of ease, take your mind off everything, and know that just one thing can be normal, and that is wrestling. And, wrestling's been a big part of my life, and it's been a big part of Will's life, and anyone's listening who's been a fan of wrestling as long as we have, it's probably been a big part of your life as well. So, we kind of have to we have to understand, and also we have to overcome, most importantly, we have to overcome this scenario and understand that we are actually in the same boat. We may be different fans, either AEW or WWE, but we're in the same boat. We're in the same situation. And it's our job as fans to encourage everyone out there to watch wrestling and to get their mind to be taken off of whatever's going on just for a few moments. You know what I mean? So, being an essential business for WWE was a great, a great happening in my opinion. I really think that was really necessary. Like I said, there's other controversy about it. But let's go ahead and get into the news. Let's go ahead and start talking about this COVID-19. Even though we are going to be mentioning stuff that's going to be related to COVID-19, of course, the number one thing that was broken earlier this week, and I was actually attempting to do a podcast in the shop on this, and I just wasn't feeling it. I really wasn't. I was like at the point where I'm just like, you know what? I don't really know if I want to do this podcast today because, for one thing, Will wasn't there. And it kind of feels weird doing this podcast now without Will but doing it from my house, and it's a kind of a controlled environment. Until we can get everything fixed at the shop, it's definitely going to be a little bit better of a step. Plus, I'll be able to get more content out to you guys instead of waiting for us to both be at the same place at the same time, which can be a issue, especially when we both have wife and kids. So, first thing we'll be talking about is Vince McMahon possibly selling World Wrestling Entertainment. Now, like I said, this was broken earlier this week, and a lot of news sources, a lot of wrestling news sources, kind of like this, they were speculating that it was actually going to be Disney to purchase World Wrestling Entertainment because, of course, they own Fox and ESPN, FS1, all those different platforms that we're used to seeing World Wrestling Entertainment kind of, platform off of. We're now understanding that Disney possibly would buy the company. Now, this was an inside story from Dutch Mantel. People probably don't really know who Dutch Mantel is from his stage name. He was basically Jack Swagger's manager back in the day, and he's also served a lot of backstage roles. He's that one dude that's got the handlebar mustache. You know what I'm talking about? The guy used to hang out with Jack Swagger. That's him, and he is an office persona within the headquarters, which everyone kind of knows that pretty much anyone that plays a role on screen as a manager or something, they're pretty much a backstage presence. I mean, you look at Pat Patterson and Finley and Orn Anderson and all them. So they're definitely a backstage presence. So he's one of those backstage presence, and he overheard in a meeting that Vince was actually speculating on selling the company. Now, when people approach the WWE headquarters about sponsors from this accusation, they clearly said, "Why would you listen to what that guy said anyway?" And then also he went on Twitter and he put it up on Twitter. He tagged ESPN, he tagged Disney and all that to kind of make it seem legit. But the post wasn't ever taken down. I don't really know if the post is still up there now. Like I don't really go on Twitter too much, so I can't really clarify if that's still there. But I found that kind of odd because normally when Vince McMahon sees something that he does not want to be on the worldwide internet for everyone to read and speculate on, and especially if they're trying to keep this under wraps, which I would do if I was trying to sell my company that's been in business for several years, I would have told my employee to take it down. And he didn't never take it down, in my opinion, as far as I know. So that leads me to think: was it not factual? Was it speculation? Was it maybe a misunderstanding? And then a lot of people saying that they're talking about selling the rights to some of the footage from the WWE Network, and then also in that deal that Dutch Mantel was mentioning about with Disney, they were going to sell the rights to World Wrestling Entertainment as well as the WWE Network. Excuse me. So the way I see that, now if you would have told me that they're probably going to sell the rights to ESPN or FS1 for WWE Network, I mean, I completely agree with that. The reason why I agree with that is because, FS1 does WWE Backstage. They're the host of WWE Backstage, which has gotten insanely popular. Like, a lot of people watch that show. And they are really praising that show for having that legitimate sports, I guess, look to it. You know what I mean? Because it feels like a show that you would watch if you were, leading up into a big ball game or something like that. So it's kind of like the pre-show a little bit, how WWE does it, but they go way more in depth on like the different characters within the company and stuff, which is really, really cool. So I really think that might be a possibility that they might be selling some of the footage from WWE Network to them for maybe some special airing of matches, like if they're interviewing a certain superstar or something. I think that would be a great idea. I think that would be cool to see matches go on while they're kind of interviewing one of the superstars and kind of like ask them about like what happened here, and kind of just giving a backstage role or a backstage look, which is what the name of the show is, Backstage, at what it is to be a wrestler in this company, what it is to have spots and bumps and sales. Like, I think that would be really, really cool because we know kayfabe is dead at this point, you know what I mean? So it doesn't really tarnish the name of wrestling. I mean, everyone knows that it's predetermined. Everyone knows that people are trained to take bumps and things like that. But the way that they could flip the script on it and actually give it a realism take, when something actually does go wrong, I think that would be a great idea for WWE Backstage to do. So maybe that's what Dutch Mantel overheard. Maybe he thought that when he heard, we're going to sell the network to Disney, because of course they own ESPN and FS1 and Fox. maybe he took that as, oh my God, he's going to sell the entire company. So I don't really think Vince McMahon is going to sell the company. The reason why I say this is because, for one thing, it doesn't make sense right now business-wise. I mean, I don't want to bring this up again because a lot of people are probably trying to forget about this listening to this podcast, but we're in the middle of the biggest epidemic that we've seen in some years now. You know what I mean? A lot of businesses, they really don't have the income to be making these rash decisions and buying a company such as WWE. And, you got to think the evaluation of that company financially would probably be in the billions of dollars. I mean, if I would have to roughly estimate how much Vince McMahon would be willing to sell the entire company for, you'll be looking at $5.3 something billion or $8 billion. I mean, it's going to be a $1 billion investment for another company to buy, and it's not the time to do that. Now, if we didn't have all this stuff going around and Vince McMahon was possibly speculating on selling the company, I would have believed it, but in today's time, it just doesn't make sense business-wise. Vince McMahon is a smart businessman. He has proved that to everyone that's doubted him in the past, and he continues to do so. So him to make a rash decision in selling a company in today's time like that, it just does not make sense business-wise. And ultimately, a lot of WWE stocks are being sold and stuff like that, which that's kind of being expecting right now. A lot of companies are actually selling those stocks as well, just because of what we're dealing with in today's time. So it was kind of like the wrong time at the wrong place type of situation. We heard the news that WWE might be sold, and then people selling stocks. So people that really don't understand the business side of things when it comes to stock investments and different shares and all that. When they see a company starting to sell those off, they ultimately think that they're going out of business, and that's not the case. Quite frankly, they're trying to spread their assets wherever they can to cut the most money away from them being spent, if that makes sense to you. We know that they've been doing the Performance Center. That may be a little bit cost-effective in their long run, but entertainment-wise, we as the fans are ready to see the crowds come back. And the governor of Florida, I don't really know his name. I live in North Carolina, so I don't really keep track of other governor names. But he actually speculated that maybe by mid-June, this is a statement from him, that we may possibly be seeing some fans be ushered in slowly. But I cannot stress that to you enough, slowly, into the sports scene. So maybe we'll get fans back. Only time will tell. I really wish that everyone that is being affected by this. I hope we get some good news soon. I really wish that for everyone. So that's good news for the wrestling fans. I mean, maybe fans can come back, and that ultimately will start to bring some revenue back into the company. Of course, because ticket sales will be going and all that thing and all those things, and a lot of the things going on with sponsorships. So sponsorships are not really sponsoring Monday Night Raws. They're not sponsoring Friday Night SmackDowns. So everything that WWE's doing at this point now is coming out of the company's pocket, or maybe other assets such as the WWE Network, maybe how many revenue that's built up and all that. And then over the years, just saving money because of how big the company is, and then going public and everything, and you having investors and all that. So, it's a tough time for them. It really is a tough time for AEW. AEW's not really stressed a lot of their concerns financially, and I think that's because they're a new company. I really do. AEW's really at the pivotal point of either making it or breaking it, and I don't really see them breaking it anytime soon. I think they're going to continue on with this All Elite Wrestling and actually flourish as a good company and actually a really good alternative to World Wrestling Entertainment, which is what I hope that can happen. I really don't want to see one company go out of business for the other. I would like to see a coexistence of just an alternative, kind of like how TNA was back in the day. A lot of people didn't really like TNA. Well, a lot of people don't like AEW, so it's always good to have an alternative to watch other than just one, show, which is Monday Night Raw or Friday Night SmackDown, or if you have the WWE Network, NXT. So, moving on from everything, talking about the Money in the Bank ladder match now. Of course, we knew for a while that it's going to be held at the headquarters, the WWE headquarters, on the top of the WWE headquarters. Now, speculation has gone around that Apollo Crews has been taken out of the match. I really have not heard too much about that. I know there was speculation that he was taken out. Don't really know if that was dealing with, personal well-being for health or anything. I really don't know, so I can't really touch on that. I don't want to say anything out of line that's not really factual. But Apollo Crews has possibly been taken out of the match, which is really disappointing in my opinion, because I felt like he was a really good superstar for him to be pushed finally. We still have the original lineup going into it, though, and everything other than all the other superstars besides Apollo Crews. Like I said, the match is supposedly going to take place on the top of the WWE Headquarters match, or the WWE Headquarters, not the match, but the ladder match, or the Money in the Bank ladder match. That's going to be interesting. We see WWE now outside of their element, and quite frankly, they're doing a really good job outside of their element. I mean, if you look back at the Boneyard match from WrestleMania 36, if you look back at the Firefly Funhouse match on night 2 of WrestleMania 36, a tremendous amount of production and just really, really nice quality went into that. It was just really cool to see, you know what I mean? We're not used to things like that. We're not used to seeing Undertaker be outside the ring into a certain environment like the Boneyard match. We weren't used to seeing the Fiend and John Cena wrestling and fictitious elements of John Cena's career. That was really, really cool. So, yeah, I mean, being on the roof of the WWE Headquarters, I think it's a great idea. I think it's going to be really entertaining, really different, really new. And quite frankly, everything going on right now, that's what we really want from wrestling. We want something different. We want something innovative. We want something new. Will they go back to the status quo after the crowds come back? More than likely, they probably will. They might keep some elements into what they did on these pre-taped episodes and these empty Performance Center, matches and everything. Maybe they'll keep some elements of that. Definitely the camera angles, like when Elias fell off the top and all that. Those will be really cool things to keep. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good idea to see the Money in the Bank ladder match on top of the WWE Headquarters. Like I said, it's a different take on the match, and the match has been going on for years now. We kind of know what to expect. We're going to see some high-stake bumps. We're going to see some really cool sells, and we're going to see some really awesome spots. But with the way that the company's in the direction now, kind of switching that status quo up and going up on the Money in the Bank ladder match on top of the roof of the WWE Headquarters, I think it's a great, great idea. But that's about it for that. Next thing we got to talk about. Now, me and Will, again, we were talking about this the other day. We did this entire podcast. I kid you not. We did this entire podcast. This podcast came out to like an hour and something minutes long. And it failed to upload. I don't know what happened. One of the images got corrupted, and it corrupted the audio from then on. It was just a pain in the ass. So, we're talking about Ronda Rousey and her controversy. Now, this is old news to somebody probably. But, like I said, we were wanting to post this up. Sadly. Excuse me, give me a second. But sadly, we were not able to do that because the video was corrupted, the audio was corrupted, and all that crap. So, Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey went on Steve-O's podcast, and she was basically kind of put everything short, because they probably went into the whole story right now. I just want to put my opinion onto it. She basically called all the fans very ungrateful, that they didn't really respect her. She, called them a bunch of ungrateful fans. She cursed a little bit and kind of degraded the fans because they didn't really like her too much, and just all kinds of things like that, and basically saying how she liked to have fake fights and how she was in theater, and just a lot of things that you would not say. So back then, I was at the conclusion that she was just being stupid. Maybe she was just being jealous because she was kind of set up on this on the side rail and not really messed with again. I mean, I don't really know. I wouldn't say put on the shelf, but definitely set to the side for the time being. And the more I think about it, and the way these other superstars are starting to kind of play with it on Twitter, I'm starting to think this was a work. I really am. I'm starting to think this was a work. Me and Will were talking about how she was a face when she left, of course. And a lot of people liked her as a face, which I didn't like her as a face. I thought her gimmick was really just not the best. I mean, the whole Roddy Piper, I just thought it was disrespectful in a sense because she was nowhere at the level he was. I mean, he was one of the best heels in the entire company, and she comes as a face. It just didn't really make sense to me creative-wise. So I wasn't really digging on fans. I mean, not fans, but her storyline. I wasn't really digging on character. I don't know. It was just something like I really never look forward to watching Ronda Rousey wrestle. When they brought her in at WrestleMania and she did that spot with Stephanie and Triple H, that was kind of cool. But after that, she just kind of died off. She really did. Like, when she was debuted, it was like, yeah, you're here now, but why are you here? You know what I mean? And then she automatically gets pushed to the main event. I don't know. It's just really, really difficult time in wrestling at that time. Because that was when all the MMA crossovers were starting to, like, really kind of, like, come full swing. I mean, this was before Cain Velasquez and all that. But it definitely was, an element. Because you had Ronda Rousey as the women's competitor. You had Brock Lesnar as the men's competitor. They both had UFC backgrounds. They both came from MMA. And they were both being pushed to the main event roster. And they were conquering and dominating and getting championships. And finally, when Becky Lynch actually won the title from Ronda, I was really excited to actually see somebody who I felt deserved it get it. And she's had the belt ever since and hasn't dropped it. So, is Ronda Rousey coming back as a heel? I think so. I really do. I think they're going to play with this to their advantage. Because, quite frankly, after you say something as bold as you did on that podcast and you want to come back as your entire character like was with a face, it's never going to work. The fans are not going to invest in you. They're going to hate you. Because they know that you have a heelish side to you, but you're being a face. Saying things on a podcast and then going on to the program and being a completely different person, it never works out for anybody. So if WWE was actually wanting to capitalize on this, on these statements that she said on this podcast, bring her back as a heel. Bring her back as a mean heel. Bring her back as a dominant heel, and I promise you she'll get over. And maybe later down the road, turn her as a face, but just with a new gimmick. Drop the Roddy Piper stuff. Give her her own, I guess you could say, characteristic, and let her go free and see what she does. I think she's a really good superstar if they give her the right creative. Next thing, we mentioned Cain Velasquez a while ago. The other day, Cain Velasquez was officially released from World Wrestling Entertainment. Now, I didn't know he was still with the company, and I don't mean any disrespect to Cain Velasquez at all, but the last time I seen that man was at Crown Jewel last year when he faced Brock Lesnar, and they had that whole storyline with Rey Mysterio and Brock Lesnar beating up Dominic and all that kind of stuff. That was the last time I seen Cain Velasquez in a squared circle in a 20x20 ring. I didn't know he was still here. I really didn't. He was released. Some people were upset because that was an opportunity that they could have missed. 2021 was supposedly his new debut, that he was going to actually come to the main roster and be a superstar. Why they would keep him around for 3 more years after his supposed debut at Crown Jewel, it made no sense to me at all. So I don't really see it as a shock for him being released. He was an okay in-ring presence because of his star power, I guess you could say, his recognizing of different fans from MMA. But in the ring, he just was not the best. He just wasn't the best. So he was released. I don't really know what's going to happen in the future with him. I don't know if he's going to come back to WWE. They always said he was respectful backstage, so that's always a good thing. It's always good to be respectful. That way, in case they do need you in the future, you definitely come back on and you didn't get off on a bad foot, when you were released. So, really cool thing. And also, other superstars were released a few weeks ago. Everyone kind of nicknamed that as Black Wednesday. A lot of superstars were released, sadly. And I'm not really going to touch on that because, like I said, a lot of people's touched on that. We're kind of behind. We're playing catch-up at this point. But honestly, with everything going on, back to this COVID-19 stuff within the world of wrestling, we're seeing one side of things a good way, as such as the Money in the Bank coming on the WWE headquarters and the Money in the Bank, roof match or whatever they're going to call it. Money on the roof, climbing the corporate ladder, that's what I would call it. And then, seeing the transition into superstars being released, and then also seeing the transition into WWE struggling as a company right now to actually have income when it comes to fans not being there and everything. A lot of different things going on. A lot of different aspects going on within the world of World Wrestling Entertainment, within the entire nation, within the entire universe that's dealing with this well, not universe, but the entire, world, whether they're overseas or in the States, dealing with this COVID-19 epidemic. Very, very sad to see it affecting things that we love, such as wrestling. But that's about it. I've talked about everything that I want to talk about. I'm definitely going to start doing podcasts like this as often as I can. If I'm not going to be the one to podcast every day, I can guarantee you that much. But I definitely will try my best to sit down and talk to you guys every now and then and talk about what's going on in the world of wrestling like we always do. So Will is still a part of the podcast. Like I said, let's just get this L fixed at the shop and let's try to get that taken care of so we can actually sit down and enjoy making these podcasts standing side by side and not having 20 fans blowing on us because we're so hot, because of just, it would mess up the entire sound quality to this. So my name is Johnny from HXC Wrestling Talk Show. Do not forget to like, comment, subscribe, and do not forget to hit that little notification bell, and it will let you know every time we upload a video like this one. As always, guys, stay safe, stay healthy. We will see you guys. I will see you guys. HXC Wrestling Talk Show. We'll see you guys later.